Hey there, it's me. I'm going to give you 10 pieces of guitar arranging advice in the next 10 minutes. Let's go. Number 1, use technology, specifically Guitar Pro. I've talked to a lot of people who don't use any programs when they arrange. They just sit there, and actually, that's what I used to do. I would just like sit there with my guitar in my lap, and I would have usually a YouTube video on. It was a song I'd want to do, and I would just kind of go measure by measure, and I would start at the very top, try to figure out that first measure, and like, okay, I've kind of got it. I got something I sort of like, and then I would go to the next measure, and then, okay, I've got something I like, and then I go to the third measure, and all of a sudden, I can't really transition from the second measure to the third measure, and ultimately, what I realized is that if you don't take what you're doing and you turn it into some kind of manipulatable information, you're kind of at a huge disadvantage. And you know, for so long, I was like, I don't want to do tabs. Tabs are going to slow me down. Because anytime I tried to do the tabs, it would just, I'm like, this is taking too long. But once I got a system down, I start actually putting my arrangement into Guitar Pro as information. I was able to manipulate it. So like, I could put in just the melody or just the bass, and I wouldn't lose that information. And I could create like a skeleton for the song. Anyways, use some technology, okay? Specifically Guitar Pro. It's the move. Number 2 is you're going to start immediately, okay? Don't wait. You don't have to be ready to start doing guitar arrangements. You can literally start now, and one of the best ways to get better at guitar arrangements is to actually start doing it. The best people at arranging are people who actually do it. So doing the skill actually makes you better at it. Now, I don't recommend starting and going totally willy-nilly about it. I actually have a video where I break down where I would start. It's called the Arranging Quick Start. I'm going to link it below in this video, so check that out if you want to get started with arranging, okay? Number 3, I would do guitar transcriptions first. So the difference between a guitar arrangement and a transcription is that a transcription is just a guitar piece of music, something that already exists as a guitar song, and then trying to figure that out by ear and then write that all out. The reason that's easier than doing a guitar arrangement is an arrangement, you're dealing with a lot more possibilities. You have to actually take this source material, which is a piece of music that you want to learn, and then you have to ask yourself, okay, where do I put this bass line? What key do I put this in? You know, are these arpeggios even possible? Do I have to change them? But you know that if you're working with something that somebody's already playing on guitar, you know that there's actually one solution. So as you're transcribing, it's like you just take whatever notes exist there, somebody's playing it, and you figure it out on your guitar. So that's actually what I did when I started. I would download these songs and I would just learn them by ear, and I think that that is a fantastic way to get going with arranging. Point number 4, you gotta slow songs down, dude. When you're trying to figure out tricky sections of songs, I always slow that crap down, especially if it's like if it's really fast lead or something like that. Slowing the song down is vital. And that's why a piece of software, say like Guitar Pro, or you know, there might be other programs that can do it. But the great thing about Guitar Pro is you can bring a file into Guitar Pro, and then there's literally a selector where you can select, you know, how fast or slow you want the song to be. So I'm constantly figuring out songs at like 70% speed, or maybe if something goes really, really fast, there's a crazy lead that's a whole bunch of notes or some wild arpeggio, I'll slow it down to like 50% speed or even like 25% speed. That way I can hear everything that's happening, right? I can discern every single note. Number 5 is you gotta transpose your stuff, and not always, but you have to be open to the possibility of transposing your guitar arrangements. The reason being is guitar is a fairly limited instrument, right? It's like you got these 6 strings, and I'm out of tune, but they can be played with one hand. So those particular strings have an advantage. So the more of those strings that you have in your arrangement, particularly in the bass, the easier it's going to be to play, especially the more difficult parts of the song. So I'll specifically look for, you know, parts of the song that are tricky, where the melody might go up really high or it might be really active, and I'll ask myself, what key could I put this song in, or what tuning could I put this song in, where I would be able to have access to more open strings. And the only way that you can do that is by being open to the possibility of doing something in a different key. Number 6, dude, I can count. I'm super good at counting, guys. I think you should ignore fingering at first. Ignore note position and fingering for a while. I actually ignore it until I have all of the melody and the bass all completely down. Now, once I have the melody and the bass and I've decided on my key, then I'll start actually thinking about note positioning and all that kind of stuff. But until then, I honestly don't worry about it. The reason is that in the beginning, if you go from measure 1 and you start trying to make this perfect arrangement with all the fingering put in and all the inner notes and all that stuff, you might be able to work out 1 measure or 2 measures or whatever, or 3 measures, or maybe even a whole section. Maybe half of the song works great. But then you get to another section of the piece and all of a sudden it's literally impossible. Like, you've arranged it in such a way that like the melody goes way up here, and it's completely unpractical because you don't have access to these low bass strings. And so what I think is most important is to make sure the overall arrangement, basically the most important elements, the melody and the bass, to make sure those are working and that those are in range. And then once you've got that set up and you know that that's okay, because those are usually the constraining elements, then you can start to think about, okay, what extra notes can I put in here? What extra notes or lines do I hear from the piece of music that I can put in here? And where exactly should I play them based on this bass and melody sort of cage that you're in? Number 7, dude. When you get that Guitar Pro, which you frickin' should, is you should learn it like it's a separate skill. You should treat it as a separate skill. So you may have been playing guitar for 5 years, 10 years. You might be a god at guitar. You might be a god at moving your fingers around. But guess what? If you get a new piece of software that you're trying to use, doesn't matter what the software is. It could be like you're trying to learn Photoshop for the first time. You're trying to learn like video editing software for the first time. The thing is you're going to suck at it, all right? It's going to actually hold you back where you are right now. Eventually, it'll be something that helps you. But in the beginning, there's kind of a learning curve that you got to get over. So, you know, it can be hard for people sometimes that are really, really good at a certain skill. Let's say like they're really good at guitar, for example, and then they start, you know, dipping their toes into an arena that they have no experience in. Let's say like the arena of Guitar Pro or some other program. It doesn't matter. And then it's frustrating. It's new. They're not used to sucking at it. And you have to be okay with sucking at the new thing for a little bit. Okay, so treat it as a separate skill. It really is a separate skill, and it's going to be a little bit clunky at first, but ultimately it's going to be something that helps you and makes the process better. So my 8th wonder of the world is to use a mouse with a lot of keybinds. Now, I think specifically a mouse that has a scroll wheel with the tilt left and right function is super important, and that's because it allows you to navigate left and right in the staff on Guitar Pro, which means if you can do that and you can bind a lot of the other keys on the mouse to important shortcuts that you use all the time, like, you know, putting in rhythms or putting in a dot or, you know, undo, like all of these things, anything that you do routinely when you're doing a guitar arrangement, you should bind to one mouse, because that will allow you to do most of your arranging work with one hand, which is pretty sick, right? So you get to an arrangement and you're like, okay, I know I need this note, I know I need this note, okay, and I want to find this inner note and this inner note, right? Now, from here, I can just look at my hand, and if I've bound my mouse correctly, I can just input all that stuff in really, really quickly and really, really easily into the software that I'm using. So even if you're not using Guitar Pro, if you're using MuseScore or something like that, I'm sure there's keybinds in MuseScore. I actually don't know that, but I'm sure there's got to be, right? Getting a mouse with a whole bunch of buttons and binding them to the things that I needed most often when I was doing guitar arrangements really sped my process up a lot, and I highly recommend that. Here's my 9th hot tip, okay? You shouldn't really try to make arrangements that are unique. And I don't think that you need to worry about being unique or having your own flair or putting your own spin on things, their own flair. Make it unique to themselves. I think that first and foremost, that you're able to make an accurate arrangement that works practically. And a lot of arranging is an exercise in sort of practicality and problem solving, instead of this big, huge creative endeavor. At least that's the way that I think about it. I'm trying to kind of create and solve a puzzle all at the same time. You know, let's say you're a composer or something. You know, I feel you don't really have to try to be yourself. I think you'll just be yourself. And if you make things that you like, they will be unique to you because you're you, and you have your own brain and your own experiences that you're drawing on and all that. But especially with arranging, I think that, just trying to be accurate with it. That's what I do. I mean, some people do it in a different way, and that's totally fine. But my favorite arrangements are the ones that feel the most like the piece. Ultimately, that's what I'm trying to capture, right? So I don't think about trying to be unique. I just think about trying to be accurate. The last and final bit of advice that I have for you is that melody is king, okay? Melody above all. It's the most important thing. And then right beneath that, I would say bass. A lot of times when people start arranging, I see the melody get compromised. This will happen in several different ways. One of them is that other notes will encroach upon the melody's range. Let's say, for example, I had a melody that goes, right? And I had a bass line that went, and, let's say I wanted to have, like at this beat, boom, I wanted to have some kind of inner note, that filled out the rhythm of that particular section. Now, if I choose a note that's too close to the melody, let's say, maybe this one, for example, watch. So the melody's going, I got my bass line. Now, let's say I want to put something right here. The problem is that now the melody is perceived by the listener as going, right? So like, and a lot of times people don't really notice that they're doing this and that they're translating the wrong thing into the head of the listener because they know the melody. So when they're arranging, they know exactly what the melody is supposed to be. And so they can pick that out of what they're playing, and they're not hearing the fact that there's other notes that are sort of like detracting from the melody's line. Now, if you chose like this note, for example, this note instead, that's okay because it's further away from the melody, right? This one, that one feels like it's part of the melody. This one, that one doesn't. So hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say, dog. Now check it out. If you want to get started with arranging, I have a video on YouTube. It's called the Guitar Arranging Quick Start. I'm going to link it down below, and it'll be on the end screen right here. You can just click it. It's going to be somewhere in a second. Give that a click if you want to get started with arranging. It's got some more info on some of the stuff that I talked about in this video. Okay? Check it out. Later.